Remember mom's dinners in the 80s and 90s? I mean, it was before Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok could give her tips and lessons. She just dove in with the skills she had, and sometimes the outcome, well, it was a little sketchy. Sometimes you didn't even know what you were about to eat. That's the story I'm going to tell this week on Bill Roseberry Stories. The time my late best friend Jason Reedy went to eat his favorite meal, spaghetti, but had the realization that something was missing. He honestly had no clue what monstrosity his mom had created. Did he eat it? What did he do? Well, we're about to find out. I'm Bill Roseberry. Welcome to my channel and enjoy this original fact or fiction feature from my storytelling series that offers plenty of Gen X nostalgia and serves it up on the regular.
Reedy shoveled spaghetti into his mouth with the fervent enthusiasm of someone who believed the secret to eternal life was hidden in the bottom of a pasta bowl. It was his third helping. Man, the guy loved spaghetti. It was the summer of 1990, the final stretch of freedom before we started high school in the fall. Reedy was staying at my house for the weekend, a common occurrence throughout the last year. I'd always known who he was growing up, but once he was held back in 8th grade and ended up in my classes, we became fast friends. I just sat in awe watching him work. Where was he putting it all, I wondered. Mom, Dad, and I had already reached our limit of the Italian delicacy. Dad had plopped onto the couch to channel surf, and Mom was in the kitchen beginning the cleanup. She had specifically made spaghetti for Reedy's visit because his reputation for loving the stuff preceded him. Reedy snatched the green cylinder of grated Parmesan, popped the top, and shook. A white, cheesy powder snowed down on his pasta. He mixed it into a thick paste and kept on going. "When are you actually going to stop eating?" I asked, my elbows perched on the table and my chin resting on my fists. "I know you like it, but aren't you hitting a wall?" "Man, I love spaghetti," he managed to say, right as a couple of crimson noodles slithered past his lips. "And your mom's spaghetti is awesome." He suddenly paused, looking up at me with a startling serious expression. He pointed his licked clean fork at me like a conductor's baton. "Dude, did I tell you about the spaghetti my mom made a while back?" He shook his head slowly, looking bewildered by the memory. "No," I replied, leaning in. I was intrigued, because it was common knowledge that Reedy's mom wasn't exactly a gourmet chef, which was usually why he was at my kitchen table in the first place. "Man, let me tell you this crazy story." Reedy was sprawled across his bed in his cramped room watching Night Court on his little TV. He was just chilling, laughing at the TV judge's antics, when he heard his mom's voice rising from the hallway. "Jason!" she yelled, standing in the door frowning. "I've called you 3 times. There's spaghetti on the stove. Come get yourself something to eat." "Damn, Mom, I heard you. I'll be there in a minute," he barked back, not moving an inch. Curled up in the corner of the bed, the massive teenager looked like a bear preparing for hibernation. He stayed motionless, periodically laughing at the ridiculousness of the show. 10 minutes later, when the credits rolled, he slowly rose and lumbered down the narrow hallway to the kitchen. He peeked in at his mom on the couch in the living room with a bowl in her lap. "Is there Parmesan cheese?" he asked, rubbing his unkempt hair. It was the first time he'd emerged from his room since waking up in the late afternoon. "It's in the fridge," she answered, her tone unamused. The hallway opened up into the living room, but turning right, a small vestibule led toward the back door, and the entrance to the tiny kitchen was tucked away to the left. Reedy weaved his way in, grabbed a bowl and a fork, and turned his full attention to the stove. He was stoked. He was starving. With practiced enthusiasm, he spooned gobs of food from the giant pot into his bowl. In his excitement, he didn't notice the problem at first. But on closer inspection, the realization hit him like stepping into a cold puddle with socks on. He slammed the bowl down and stomped into the living room. Mom, is there something wrong with this spaghetti? He stared at her, waiting for an explanation for this culinary travesty. No, Jason, this is my second bowl and it's fine. Now go eat before it gets cold. She turned back to the TV without a second thought. Mom, you don't think there's anything missing? Reedy interrogated. No, Jason, go eat, she snapped, completely unaware of her blunder. There aren't any noodles in it. It's just sauce, Reedy yelled in amazement. With a blank stare, his mom peered down at the bowl in her lap. She poked at the red sludge with her fork, paused, and then started chuckling. Reedy let out a big-bellied laugh, the sheer hilarity of the situation finally overriding his hunger. Damn, Mom, what the hell? I doubled over at the table, clutching my stomach. How do you forget the noodles? That's the spaghetti part of the spaghetti. Can you believe that, man? Just meat sauce. No noodles. Who forgets putting noodles in spaghetti? Reedy said, shaking his head. Exactly, I gasped, wiping a tear from my eye. It tasted pretty decent, though, Reedy added plainly as he polished off the last bite of his current bowl. I stopped laughing and stared at him. Wait. What? You still ate it? Hell yeah, I ate it, he said, shrugging. I was starving. That's why I like coming over here, though. Your mom's spaghetti is way better. He scraped the bottom of the bowl one last time. It actually has noodles.
Can you believe that? Spaghetti without the noodles? That's quite the omission. That story befuddled Reedy for the rest of his life. He'd always shake his head when he thought of it. I'd shake my head because he still ate it. If you like this crazy tale, click like and subscribe and be back here on Bill Roseberry Stories next week for my next story of original content. Also, join the waiting list to be one of the firsts to get my upcoming debut fiction suspense novel, A Matter of Life and Death. See what happens when four boys come across an abandoned house in the woods and find $8 million. Why is the house abandoned? Where did the money come from? Twists and turns lead you down a winding, dark country road to an unforgettable ending. Best of all, two of the main characters are based on Reedy and I, with the fiction anchored in our childhoods and lives. I'll see you next week with another Fact or Fiction feature right here at Bill Roseberry Stories.